Yo, what is up, bros and broettes? Today is, I guess it's an awesome day. It's nice weather outside. It's not too cold, it's not too hot. It's not really warm either. It's kind of like a lukewarm. But with that said, what was it? Yesterday I raked up the backyard and burned the leaves and stuff. The pile over there is actually still smoldering. But, hey. But with that said, today I'm actually going to be taking out the transmission of the car because, like I said before, I am going to be selling that stuff. The KA engine, the transmission, the drive shaft, the computer, the wiring harness I'm probably not going to be selling because I'll be cutting that up anyways to get the plugs off of it that I need for the future engine swap. But with that said, I don't know if I'm going to keep sell the transmission. I might keep that and run something different. We'll see how that goes. But with that said, I already have the back end of the car jacked up, straight PP blaster on the drive shaft bolts that connected to the differential. And then, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the drive shaft out. And we'll get started on getting this transmission out. Let's get started. Alright guys, so little update. I'm about to drain the transmission fluid. I just got the drive shaft out. And it actually looks like it's in pretty good condition. You know, obviously the, this has some signs of wear, but nothing too serious. When I had my first 240, this drive shaft bushing was shredded, so, but I mean, you know, it ain't too bad, but obviously I can't keep this for what I have planned. I mean, I guess I could keep this piece, like cut off the end here, and so I can keep, this piece down here, and maybe go from there. But I'm gonna go ahead and drain the fluid out of the transmission, and then we'll go about taking the transmission out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that fluid drained, and then once I got that drained, I'll come back and let you guys know what I'm gonna do next. I obviously have to unbolt the slave cylinder from the transmission, and then I'll unbolt the transmission mount to drop it a little bit, so I can get the bolts, the bell housing bolts up top, get the ones on bottom, and then wiggle that thing out. So it should be interesting. Let's get it done. The main reason I'm taking out the transmission is because I'm going to sell it, but I'm still going to show you the process of taking out the transmission. Now I already took out the drive shaft. That just took the 4 bolts out from where it connects to the differential, and then the 2 carrier bolts that hold the center bearing for the drive shaft to the chassis. So I already got that out of the way, and I've already drained the fluid. Now I'm going to let's see, I'm going to show you how to drain the fluid, and that is as easy as taking, let's see, right there. This thing will quit moving on me. Let's see, where is it on the camera? There it is. That right there, that's the drain plug for the transmission. You take that out, which I already did, and you drain the fluid. And then once you got the fluid drained, you put your plug back in. And you move up to here, because you're going to have to take out the shifter. Just to make things easier down the line. So you'll just unscrew the shift knob. Go. Put that back in neutral. Let's go ahead and pop this up. Take that out. Then you'll take typically you're supposed to get a bracket around this, but apparently whoever did the auto to manual swap didn't put that bracket in. But there's 4 bolts. Take off the shift cover, and then you'll have access to the 6 12mm bolts that hold the whole shifter assembly in. And then once you do that, then you can drop the transmission down, unbolt the transmission bracket and let it lean down. Obviously put a jack under for support if you need it, and then start undoing the bell housing bolts. Once you got those undone, then you'll wiggle the the drive shaft, then you'll wiggle the transmission off the engine and down onto the ground, and then pull it out from under the car. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go ahead and continue getting that cover off, and then I'll show you the 12mm bolts that I was talking about for the shifter. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and take you guys off of the tripod. Just set that on the ground. Now I got this cover off, you know, that little boot thing. As you can see 4 of the 12mm bolts right here. Here's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the other 2, I don't think you'll be able to see them, but they are up in there. Not too far up in there, but they're enough up in there that I should probably be able to get to that. But I'm going to go ahead and take these off. You take these off next. This whole shifter bracket and everything comes out, and then that's something that you don't have to worry about finagling out from under the car. So let's go ahead and get that shifter assembly up. Alright guys, so before I got too far ahead of myself, I'm going to go ahead and prop the hood up and then take off the slave cylinder from the transmission, and then I'll also take off these brackets that bolt the transmission to the engine, that are bolted from that engine to the transmission. Take out the starter, you know, all that mumbo jumbo stuff. And then after I have those all off and the shifter out, then I can drop the transmission down, unbolt the transmission mount, let it drop down a little bit, and then start taking off the bell housing bolts. You know, actually, shoot, I don't even have to drop the transmission down to get the bell housing bolts. They're all literally like right here. So I'm just gonna take the shifter assembly out and then unbolt the bell housing bolts and then let it down. So let's get started. Well, let me finish getting the shifter out first. So I'm gonna take the shifter out. It's those 12 bolts. I'm gonna take off these brackets right here. Here's one down here, connected with 2 14s on the engine block, and then there's 2 that bolt to the transmission. And same with this side. As you can see, if this thing, you can even see in there, I highly doubt it. Down here, there's 2 more. I doubt you can even see that. But whatever. Yeah, there's 1 bolt there, and then 1 bolt right next to it that bolts the engine, and then there's 2 that bolt down to the transmission. You unbolt those, that's those little brackets, and then you can take off the remaining of the bell housing bolts that bolt it to the engine. So, oh, and I also need to unplug the reverse sensor and the speed sensor. So, yep. Let's get to it. Alright guys, so shifter is out. Those are the, you know, like I was saying, you got those 2 that I showed you. I mean, those 4 that I showed you, and then the 2 up front you can't really see, and then you just pull all the assembly out. So, as you can see, it's dirty, but I'll get the transmission all cleaned up. Next, I'm going to go ahead and unplug those sensors, and then start taking the bell housing bolts out. So, yep. Alright, so I got the wires disconnected for the 2 sensors. Now I'm going to go ahead and take out the starter. It's 2 14mm bolts that bolt in through the back of the transmission into the starter. So, and then you obviously got to do the ignition plug and the power wire for the starter. So those are already taken off. Now it's just time to unbolt the 2 bolts that hold the starter in. Alright, so I got the starter out. That went really fast. It took me maybe 10 minutes, if that. I got to the bolts and everything from the top, and then let it down through the bottom. So next up is to take off the slave cylinder for the clutch. and then take off those brackets that are from the engine to the transmission, and then take off the bell housing bolts. We're getting close. We're getting close. Alright guys, so we're getting to the last few steps. I got the starter out. I got the brackets off that are bolted to the engine, to the transmission. Those brackets look like this. I'll go ahead and show you what those guys look like real quick. So you got this driver side bracket, and then this passenger side bracket, bolt to the engine, and then the transmission. After you got those and the starter out, you only have a few bolts that actually bolt the bell housing to the engine, the transmission to the engine. And from what it looks like, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like it's maybe 5 or 6 bolts. And I'm pretty sure those are 14s, but I'm going to double check right now. Yep, those are 14 millimeter. So once you got everything out, you have one right down here. You got one right there, and then you come all the way up here. You got the one right here, and then one right here. Another one right there. And it's really easy to get to these once you had the emission stuff out, which cleared up a lot of room. And you got, so that was the one I just pointed at, and then you got one down here. You got another one down here, and I think there might be one further down, but I'm not sure. You'll have to double check. I'll double check once I get under there. But I'm going to start breaking those all loose and unbolting the transmission. So, alright guys, so I got all the transmission bolts out that actually bolt to the engine. There was actually only 5 bolts. I'm sure that it'll look like there's more, especially once you take the starter bolts out. Once you take the starter out and the brackets that bolt to the engine and the transmission, then the bell housing bolts, the only thing that are left are these 5 right there, those 5 bolts. And then once you got those out, all that's left is to I'm going to jack up the front of the car, and then actually yeah, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do here, but I'll figure it out. I'll definitely figure it out. So, but with that said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and jack up the front of the car, and then unbolt the transmission mount, and then start wiggling the transmission off of the engine. So with that done, I'm gonna, like I said, yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that done. So alright guys, with careful finagling, I got the transmission out. So it is out now. You know, as you can see, it's a little dirty, so I'm gonna give this thing a clean up, and then I'm gonna lift this car back down, back onto the ground off the jack stands. Make sure to use caution when doing this with a automatic transmission, because again, they are heavy. And with that said, I did end up using the jack because I was by myself, just so that the transmission didn't, you know, just fall straight to the ground. You know, I used it, wiggled the transmission out and everything. So again, with that said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, guys, because that stuff goes a long ways. Again, thank you. Until next time, peace out, and never look back.